Hello there, this is something different today. It's never struck me really that there's people have to be beginners to CB radio, and it's so full of myths and legends and bull and, you know, armchair experts and so on. So I've worked as a two-way radio engineer for commercial business two-way radio, like you have in emergency services and taxis and other businesses and so on, for a very long time. I think it was 1985 that I started working in two-way radio. I was licensed as a radio amateur in 1979, I think it was, and then I changed that by including Morse code. In the UK at that time there were two levels of license, the A license and the B license. Just taking the two exams gave you the B license, which I had initially, giving you frequencies above 144 megs to use in that time. My interest amazingly in UHF 70 centimeters, and then if you wanted to go lower than that, you had to learn Morse code. Not quite sure what the rules are today, but so about 1983 or something, I did the Morse exam, and that took me to the A license, which is the highest one there is in the UK. So my interest, I say UHF, I'm not interested in talking to people millions of miles away. It's more, you know, 1.3 gigs and 430 megs and all that kind of stuff. It just floats my boat, different things for different people. I used to do fast scan colour TV on 1.3 gigs many moons ago. Anyway, so I've been involved with two-way radio for a very long time. And Citizens Band Radio hit the UK in November 1981, and there was a prior time before that where there was illegal activity using illegal imported radios, mainly made for the American market, but also some made for, shall we say, export markets, a market that isn't legal anywhere except at sea. So we were running a television and video business as well as two-way radio in Yorkshire, and I decided we'd do Citizens Band Radio repairs because there were too many screwdriver experts who didn't have the test equipment and so on to do it properly, so we did them at a knockdown. Well, really it's a loss, and we probably still do, to be honest. What these days we do CB wise is mainly business customers, and by business customers I mean people like farmers who I've got two-way radio back to base, but to chat amongst themselves they can use CB radio, which is great. And I'm in a rural area, half a mile from the nearest neighbour. So very quickly, the UK started, and I hope this is big enough to see when you have to film these things on your own, you know. So the bottom frequency in the UK, FM, there's 40 channels, 27.60125 is channel 1, 27.99125 is channel 40. In the rest of Europe, it's lower in frequency, and the two don't communicate with each other. Totally different set of frequencies. Channel 1, 27.965 and 27.405. They are CPT European channels. About 1983, we did a deal with the with Europe, and it introduced something called PR27 GB, and that enabled us to have another radio so we could talk on the CPT channels, because some people travel to other countries and they want to use the CB radios already installed, especially lorry drivers. So if you wanted both sets of channels, you needed two radios, one on the with 2781 approval, there was a stamp on the front for that, and another one with PR27 GB approval. And woe betide you if they weren't approved radios, because it's 6 months in prison and £1,000 fines and all that kind of thing. Anyway, they're both similar, they're both FM and they're both 4 watts, so they're both the same kind of range, and that's how it was. And then it was thought, well, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could combine both sets of channels in one equipment? But that wasn't possible, and it wasn't possible because our 2781 system didn't have a receiver specification. You could have any old receiver, it was just a transmitter that was regulated. Whereas the PR27 GB had slightly more stringent transmitter requirements, and it had a receiver requirement, minimum requirement as well. So it was decided that we'd revamp 2781, which became CB2794. It's a different kind of approval. This time the radios had receiver approval and more stringent transmitter interference levels. That then paved the way for 80 channels, and so PR2794 came out. No, 2797. I can't even write my own blurb sheet. 2797 came out in, guess what, 1997, and then 80 channels sets were made with that approval. Then in 2001, CE approval took over, and you could have these multi-norm sets, such as this pretty bottom of the range CRT S Mini, and it's approved for use in all these countries, from AT to UK, AT, that was automatic transmission, all through to UK. And so you just by telling the radio which country you're in, it sets up all the channels for you, and that's how the radios are today. And that came in with this CE approval. Countries like the United States don't do these multi-norm sets. They still have their FCC approval, so there'll be a thing on the back saying FCC approved for their 40-channel AM and SSB system. Then in 2014, the UK government decided, well, in line with Europe, that we'd also allow AM, 4 watts, 40 channels on the same 40, and single sideband SSB on the same 40 channels with 12 watts peak envelope power, PEP. So that's what you have now on CPT: 4 watts FM, 4 watts AM if you want, 12 watts SSB. SSB has a greater range. I think it's supposed to be 2.5 times the range. I can't remember, it's a long time since I did all that studying. Morse is 12 times, and as a radio amateur, of course, that is fantastic. It gives you great range. So the UK set of 40 channels remains 4 watts, 40 channels, and that you've got 4 watts, 40 channels, AM, FM, and 12 watts SSB. So that's how it is. Single sideband sets cost more money. So, as a beginner, oh yeah, this is the other fantastic thing to know, is they're all the same range. So it doesn't matter whether you pay $44.99 or whatever these cost. I think that's what this cost us. It doesn't matter whether you pay that or whether you pay £199. It's the same range. You're just buying probably better quality and probably more features. But you know what? I've had cheapish motor cars which have been fantastic, and I've had relatively expensive motor cars which have been a load of rubbish. I've had cheap power tools that have been fantastic and expensive power tools that have been a load of rubbish. So it doesn't always mean that expensive makes are that reliable. So let's see what you get. So you get a basic set, and it's on-off volume, squelch. It has an auto squelch position, which often works as a kind of average, and it's got manual as well. It's got instant channel 9. Channel 9 is supposed to be the emergency channel, but these days I doubt that you'd call for help and get anybody. You're more likely to get help by butting in on somebody's conversation, and it just has up and down on the buttons there to change the channel between 1 and 40 and so on. So you've got instant 19, instant channel 9, green light for receive, red light for transmit. There's an FM AM switch, and when set to the UK mode in FM, it'll be UK channels, and flick it to AM and it'll still be FM, but it'll be the CPT channels. So although this radio is 2019, you could use it in AM mode. You'd have to tell it you're in a different, you'd have to tell it you're in CPT channel zone, and then it would set up AM for you. So I'll connect that to a power supply and we'll see it light up and so on. Also in these kits you usually get some brackets And don't message me saying you want to buy a set. We don't sell anything, we only do service work, and to be honest we only do that to trade. So get a microphone. This is a later version of this set. I say it's 2019 version, so it'll do 4 watts on AM, whereas the earlier ones would probably do 1 watt on AM because of the licensing changes. So I'm going to dig a power supply up, and this comes with a handy cigarette lighter plug on it, which might be convenient for some casual automotive users, but it is jolly inconvenient to do a demonstration because our power supplies don't on the whole have cigarette lighter sockets on them. So I'll pause the camera and I'll go and find a power supply. So we have a 3 amp power supply here. Now I'm aware of over 250 UK legal models, and the most I've ever seen current draw is just under 2 amps, and that was on the Serpent UK 4000. So any power supply which is regulated, because it has to be a constant 13.8 volts, because when a motor car's charging it becomes 13.8 volts and not 12. When it's stood there not run with the engine not running, it's 12 volts, probably 12.4, 12.6. But when the engine's running and the battery's charging, so it's 13.8. So to replicate that, power supplies intended for automotive product use at home will be 13.8, like this power supplies. This is made for the American market, so it's 110 volts. And just to the right here, I've got a step down transformer to turn it from our 230 volts to 117. And the only reason I bought this is because it's got a cigarette lighter socket on the front. So I'll just pop that to one side and bring the radio back into view. It's lit up, and it'll be programmed to come in on EU channels, I would think. Yes, it says EU, so there we go. So there'll be a way of programming this to make it set up the channels for the UK, and that information will be in the trusty instruction book. So having dug the instruction book out, we get a guarantee for 2 years, fantastic. Now what we have to do is find it in English. Just specification here. It says it's 4 watts AM and FM. In this case it says the maximum current consumption is 3 amps. I failed to see why it is. We've had these on the bench and they're about 1.8. Audio power output is 3 watts. That can matter if you're in a noisy vehicle. You've got diesel vehicle. There's some radios certainly in the 80s with 1.5 watts audio output, and it wasn't really adequate. Let's have a look. So EU mode, Poland, Germany, EC mode, which would be FM 40 channel 4 watts only, whereas EU allows AM as well. U allows the UK channels, as I was saying, in the FM position, and the CPT set of channels in the AM position, which is a bit confusing. Where is it? Where's IN? Someone put a comment. Is it India or is it somewhere else? 27 channels? Don't know. Right. Or is it Italy? Really don't know. So what we have to do to select the band, this is the important bit. Press and hold the up button and turn on the transceiver. So there's the up button, and turn on the transceiver. Just now flashing EU. And if I get myself back to the pesky page that is folded itself up, choose your norm position with the up and down button. So it's UK, and turn off and back on again to confirm. so it says U. So now when I go into AM, it'll switch to EU FM. How confusing is that? Now if I'd programmed it for EU, it would be 40 channels FM EU, 40 channels AM EU. But that's a bit clunky, isn't it, and clumsy. So that's now set up, and if we turn down the squelch, it'll hit all. Oh, it says AQ for auto squelch and SQ for squelch. How nifty is that? You also find some of the cheaper sets like this have an LED display which you can view from lots of angles. A lot of the LCD displays are really difficult to see, so that's something to take into consideration when you're placing a radio in a car. So this can be used as a home base simply by plugging into a power supply like we've got there and having a home base aerial. The other thing I'm going to talk to you about, so there's a basic radio, is SWR. Here is a dead basic SWR meter. Now we recently showed the installation of a CB radio into one of our cars, and I used a MFJ analyzer to help with the SWR. Okay, so I've got an MFJ analyzer, I do radio all day, but not everybody's going to spend that kind of money, and these kind of SWR meters are £14.99, and all you need is a patch cable, so that's a short bit of wire with a PL259 plug on each end. These are an SO, when it's a socket it's called an SO239, when it's the plug it's called a PL259, and normally there's two gauges for the wire. The mobile wire 6mm, and the cable for the base stations, which is lower loss, is normally 9mm. So that's the two variants. I'm going to make up a patch lead, and then we're going to do an SWR. Okay, so I have made up a cable, and while I was scrambling around looking for plugs and things, I found some of that thick cable used on base stations, which is the 9mm one, in comparison to the thin one I've just used to make up the patch lead. So that's the base station cable, and that's the stuff you normally use in cars. I was clearing a shed out yesterday. We're on this coronavirus lockdown, and I work as a church organist as well as a church organ builder as well as a two-way radio engineer, and we've of course had to close all the churches. So as a church organist I'm laid off, but as an organ builder and as a two-way radio engineer of course I can still work. Anyway, I was clearing out one of the sheds which is just about collapsed, and I thought, what can we save, what we're putting in a skip, you know, and I came across a box of PL259 plugs, must be about 30 in there. So these are two new old stock out of my worn out old shed. I've just cleaned them in isopropyl alcohol before soldering those on. I wouldn't sell them to anybody. So I've opened this SWR meter, and standard design's been around for donkey's years. It comes in the instruction book, and being from CRT it's in French primarily, and it's in English as well. I'll tell you what's made me laugh. The demonstration is with the very same radio I'm demonstrating it with. It is total chance that they're both CRT products, but I do find that kind of amusing. So the idea is that the patch lead is going to, at this stage, plug into the back of the radio. So that's done, and then that end plugs into the back of the meter. It says trans for transceiver and an for antenna, or in English we would say aerial. So obviously that goes into the transmitter socket. There we are. So that's connected up, just means we now have to plug an aerial into that. I'm going to get a mag mount aerial, and I'm going to put this on a filing cabinet, and it isn't going to be a very good SWR at all, and then we'll move out to a car. So I'll just pause the video. So we're going to be doing a demonstration of a comparison demonstration of 3 different Midland aerials. The smallest one they do, a medium one, and the biggest one they do as mag mounts. And although we're big advocates of drilling holes in cars, not everybody is able to do that, because not everybody actually owns the car outright, do they? So this is a Midland LC65. I've never taken it out of its packet. It's a magnetic aerial. I've chosen this because the bigger aerials tend to be a bit easier to do the SWR on, and SWR stands for standing wave ratio. So if all the transmit power can't get out of the aerial because the aerial's the wrong length for the frequency on which you transmit, then that power is reflected and it's shown on the SWR meter as a standing wave ratio. And the problem is that if you have such a poor standing wave ratio that it ends up above 3, it is very likely it can damage the output transistors in the in your radio. So it's something to be it is very important to keep an eye on SWR. So as I was going to put this on the filing cabinet, but I think we'll open it up on here. Now this will be made for the European market, so we're going to do this demonstration on the CPT set of channels. So the lower you go in frequency, the longer the aerial is. And so if we're on the UK set of channels, this whip might need to be an inch shorter. And since we're going to need to sell this to somebody at the end of the demonstration, I don't really want to cut it, so we're going to do the demonstration on the CPT set of channels. So out of this packet comes a magnetic base and some hardware, and also an instruction leaflet, and the instruction leaflet is for the LC29, the LC59 and the LC65 aerials. So what did I say this one was? It was a memory like a sieve. This is the LC65, which is the biggest one, and these are the 3 we're going to be doing on this demonstration later on, not on this particular video. So I'm going to put this together. So that's the plug from the antenna. I'll plug that into the socket on the radio. So I'm going to select the CPT set of channels as I said, for the reason I said. And you want to be in the centre of the band. And so that is channel 20. Now I can assure you this is going to be absolutely rubbish. And if it did work, if the SWR was acceptable, then we'd be lucky to get 3/4 of a mile on it by having it on a filing cabinet inside the house. So I've set the meter to forward power, and I've turned the calibrate knob to the left. I'm now going to press transmit, and then we adjust that whilst pressing transmit so the needle goes to the set line. Unkey, flick the switch to reflect. Incredibly, the SWR is acceptable at 1.5 to 1. I wasn't expecting that to happen. It was going to be through the roof. That is rather incredible. So let's go to the other end of the channel. So go to channel 40, forward, set, reflect, 2.8, so it's just about into the scary zone. And then on channel 1, 1.3. Now you notice it's better SWR on channel 1 than it is on channel 40. So in actual fact, in that position the aerial would want to be shortened. but we're not going to do that. We're going to put it on a car and we'll show you from there. So now we've got the aerial on the roof of the car, and this I'll start again. This car has a CB radio fitted, and I've taken off the body mounted aerial from this car so that this demonstration doesn't interfere or get interfered with the other aerial. So we've put this in the middle of the roof more or less. This is the Midland LC26, I think I said. So having moved the whip up 1/4 of an inch, let's have a look at the SWR now. So on channel 20, the needle doesn't move, that's excellent. On channel 40, the needle doesn't move, that's excellent. On channel 1, not 1.1 to 1, it's less than that. So that's excellent, and I wouldn't need to change that. I'd be quite happy with that. But you could carry on moving it up 1/16 inches at a time to when you get the best compromise. We're going to do this demonstration when we do the demonstration of the 3 aerials on channel 20, and we know the aerial's SWR is spot on. So I'm now going to go and get another aerial, the next one in the range, and we'll see whether we can do the SWR on that one. So the next aerial in this Midland range is the LC59. So we'll just take that out of the packet and put it together. This time the magnet has a SO239 fitting in line with other aerials rather than the proprietary one which was on the other one. So there we are with this model on the car. The SWR is about just less than 1.1 to 1. So we'll go to channel 40, move. So it's better on channel 40 than it was on 20. 1, and it's worse on channel 1 than it was on channel 40. So this time the aerial needs to be shortened. I think we'll be ending up having to cut something off that. Channel 40 isn't moving at all, and channel 1 is now about 1.6 to 1. So again, we could cut another 1/8 of an inch off and so on until we get the balance exactly. There's a lot of vehicles going up and down this lane today, which is in the middle of nowhere. The parallel road a mile away is closed for some road works. So in that case, this aerial needed cutting. It needed another bit taking off still if we wanted it to be perfect on channel 1, but we don't. We're going to do the demonstration on channel 20, so that'll be fine for this demonstration. So we'll move over to the next aerial, and the shorter the aerials physically, the more difficult they are to SWR. And the aerial we're going to SWR is the LC29, which is ridiculously short. It's only about 10 inches long, and we played with one of these before. We got one of these included with, I think it was the Midland M Mini Mobile, as all part of a plug and play kit, and we were astonished that it worked 6 miles away, because I tell you what, I thought this kind of aerial would be good for a mile. That's why we bought the 3 in the series, to just see what we can actually do with them. So I'll just put this one together. Like the largest aerial in the series, this has a proprietary kind of stud which is different yet again. So the only one with a conventional mount, the SO239 one, was the middle model. That's interesting. See how the SWR is on the LC29 aerial, starting at channel 20, and let's hope it's pretty spot on, because it'll be very difficult to adjust with a shorter aerial. By and large, the longer the aerial length, the easier it is to adjust. So on channel 20, it's 1.1 to 1, the needle hardly moves. Channel 40, the needle hardly moves. It's even better than channel 1. And so on channel 1, it's 2 to 1. So it's better on the higher channels than it is on the lower channels. So the aerial needs to be lengthened slightly. So I've moved the aerial up 1/8 of an inch. I've checked it and it wasn't quite right. And I've moved the aerial up another 1/8 of an inch, and I've just checked it and it appears to be 1.2. So now we'll check it on channel 20 then. So channel 20, needle hardly moves. Channel 40 is now 1.6 to 1. So I've put it down 3mm, 1/8 of an inch, and that'll be probably the best compromise. So 1.5-ish on channel 1. On channel 40, 1.4-ish. So channel 20 doesn't move. So we've balanced it. So there you have it. That's 3 SWR demonstrations on the Midland range of aerials, which are all mag mounts. Mag mounts never SWR as easily as body mount aerials, and the old idea is to put them in the centre of the roof so you've got a omnidirectional radiation pattern, so you've got the same range in all directions. So thank you for watching, and no doubt we'll be doing a video very shortly in having these as an on the road test. So thank you for watching.